firstly, I want to see a show of hands. Has anybody used GitHub Copilot? A few. Oh, more than I expected. GitHub Copilot chat? A few less. Okay, cool. So that's not everyone has used it. I thought I'd do a bit of a level set to start with. So hopefully this is going to work. Show up there, which it is. That's good. Is that okay? You can see that okay? Yeah. So I didn't want to use a complex scenario. Complex scenarios take a long time to demonstrate, of course. So I thought I'd just do something very, very basic as a scenario today. API management with an Azure function, service bus, logic apps, and Cosmos DB at the back end. And I thought I'd do this just to see how good GitHub Copilot is in terms of telling me what I need to know. I'll probably emphasize this a few times, but it is a co-pilot. It's not an autopilot. It's there to help you. It's not there to take your job away. But more importantly, it doesn't stop you having to check you're working, right? So it's very, very important to bear that in mind. So I just put my glasses on because I can't see what I'm doing. Right. So I thought to start with, I'll do something very simple. There's one thing I can never, ever remember, and it's how to do file I/O, right? Inside C#, right? So I thought I'd use that as a demo to start with. So I'm going to go up here. Got an empty file. I've already initialized this as a C# application. And of course, it's always harder to type when people are watching. So if I go in here and I start typing in, and this is the power of GitHub Copilot, of course. If I go in there now, it's going to go away and think about it. It's going to go, hey, you're writing some file I/O. And hopefully, if it doesn't take too long, you can take it back. Right, so there's the example, right? So it tells me what I need to know. And obviously, if I'm writing a lot of code, this is, we all probably used resharp and things like that in the past, which help us do various things around our code and efficiency and so on and so forth. So this is kind of doing a similar sort of thing. Now, the thing to bear in mind is where it gets its information from. So GitHub Copilot is trained on GitHub repos, right? So imagine repos that, for instance, contain COBOL. There's probably not a lot of those. Repos that contain C#, there's a lot more of them. So your mileage may vary depending on the language that you're using, right? And that's an important point to note because it is biased. We spend a lot of time trying to train bias out of large language models, OpenAI and so on and so forth. But GitHub Copilot, the cohort of data that it's trained on, is very biased because it's biased by everybody in this room who codes. But rather than accept that there, I thought what I'd do is I'll just go and actually use GitHub Copilot chats to generate this. So let's go down here. So the people who use GitHub Copilot, have you paid for it? Okay, so I don't work for GitHub. I've got no skin in the game. GitHub Copilot costs $100 US a year, $10 a month if you pay monthly, right? Think about how much time you can save by using a tool like this and then do that price comparison. And I think we'd probably all agree that $100 a year is not a bad investment of time. Right, so let me go back to my, a bit awkward with a bar in front there, that's fine. Right, so get rid of that. So what you'll see when you go into GitHub Copilot chat, little icons at the back, at the top there. What this one does is inserts right at the point of your cursor, right? So that's done very similar thing. You can see it's pretty basic, doing what it wants to do. I won't bother running all these sorts of things. But you can do all manner of things in here. I could go in here and go rewrite to include. Include a check for file existence. And off it will go. It will tell me what I need to change. And you can see it's working there, right? So I can do all manner of things in here. If I type / there's a bunch of commands that come up. So some of these are very useful, some of them are less useful. But imagine you don't have, you've inherited this code. So that top one there, /explain, if you highlight a piece of code, it will tell you roughly what it does. Great for productivity. Fix, one of my favorites because I'm a terrible coder. That's why this set of demos using Copilot, which obviously you get a different answer every single time, is going to be a lot of fun. So fix will try and go through your code and tell you what you need to fix. You can also then, when it tells you what you need to fix, if you go into the code itself and highlight that area, you can actually have Copilot fix it for you as well. So it's very, very quick. Who likes writing tests? Unit tests. I'm surprised there's actually a person who hates that. That's very, very weird. I thought you guys were developers. Right-click deploy. So /tests will write a bunch of unit tests for you. And it's clever enough to know that there's more than one unit test framework. So if you use, say, XUnit, for instance, and it writes a bunch of NUnit tests, you can say, rewrite this for XUnit, right? So that's the way that all those sorts of things work, right? So if you think about that, and that's what taken me about 3 or 4 minutes to describe all that, that's a lot of time saving, right? But what I wanted to do in terms of the actual sort of demos was actually think, what can I do in terms of writing proper code, integration code? What happens? What can I get? So that's really what this presentation is about. Who likes writing bicep templates? God, you lot are very odd. So, in a nice way, obviously. So I think, for me, bicep is still quite a new concept, I guess. I've been using it a little bit here and there. I don't do a lot of DevOps type stuff. I'm a program architect, as you saw at the beginning there. Most of my stuff is reading other people's documentation and doing reviews and things like that. So I don't tend to get my hands dirty with bicep templates very, very often. So I thought I'd see how well it does the job of bicep templates, right? So again, remember, this is trained on repos. Bicep is not as old as ARM. ARM has been around a lot longer. So you can imagine that there's a number of resources that it uses to bring that information in so that it can give you an opinionated view of a bicep template is probably much lower, right? So I'm just going to copy this. I don't trust my typing anymore. It's getting very bad. So I said, I want to create a bicep template that creates a service bus key called inbound, or service bus namespace called inbound, and a Cosmos DB namespace. I've done that because I'm going to write the function separately and the load gap separately. And you can see it goes away. Excuse me. Again, if I go back to my file, in here, it's taking, you're at the mercy of the internet connection. So I've asked it to build a document or a Cosmos DB account, a database, and a collection, right? So these are all standard things you'd probably do in ARM template or bicep template, and off you go. And it gives you a nice description as well as to what you've done, right? So if I go back up here and insert, we wander through here, we can see that there's a service bus with a namespace, inbound, Cosmos DB, documents folder, or account rather, or database rather, and an items collection, right? And I've even got it setting the partition key as well, so I've managed to do that as well. So it's done all that just through me typing a very, very basic piece of English. Now it's worth pointing out that prompts are prompts, right? There's a whole science around prompt engineering that I won't cover, but again, your mileage may vary when it comes to the output that you get from these things. So it's worth playing around with a bit of trial and error and here and there, and making sure that you get good quality output. Again, it is only as smart as the data that it's trained on, like all models. Now there's a few parameters in here, so I'm just going to save that. Let's go into my file explorer here. I've got a parameter JSON file there, which I'll actually just get rid of, I think. Oh, actually, no, we'll leave it there. Right. See what happens. It's more fun that way. Right, generate a parameters file. Yeah, JSON, yeah, why not? Required only. And it's struggling because I've already got a file, so let me just get rid of that first. Oh, hang on, required only. So again, it must have the parameters at the top, right? I think, so if we look in here, no, it does not. It's nice. Right, let's get rid of this file and try that again. It won't matter anyway because I don't really need this to be built. Right, okay. So if I go in here, now I can get this to generate unique strings. I can say, can you please generate unique strings? Because obviously service bus namespaces are very subtle for unique strings. But I know that these exist because I created them earlier on and then deleted them. So I'm just going to type in for namespace. And of course, there are rules around uppercase and lowercase and so on and so forth that you have to be aware of, and characters. So I've tried this once before, so hopefully this will all be good. Count. Oh yeah, intf great. Yeah. Oh, location. Let me get rid of location because I don't want location because that's well spotted. Thank you for telling me. Because obviously I'm doing that at the top of the other file. I'm saying use the resource group location, right? So integrate. Oh dear. This is why you don't type on screen, right? Integrate 2024 SB. So fingers crossed when I right-click deploy. Yes, I'm going to do that. This should all go swimmingly, and I'll get the stuff done that I need to get done. Should already be there. You'll notice there's something called Integration 2024 Backup. You can probably figure out what that's for, just in case things don't work, right? So that's kind of partial chicken way, but not full chicken way, right? So. So I'm going to just let this run because it's going to take a little bit of time, and I'll move on to the functions side of things. So the deployment's been started, so hopefully I'll come back to this and it will just work. I'll check in here in a minute to make sure it has. So what I want to do with the function, I thought what we'll do is we'll grab, I'll check the time, yeah, we'll grab an HTTP trigger and we'll send something to service bus. Right, very, very simple, but again, it's all really about just trying these things out and seeing the outcome, trial and error, and seeing what works and what doesn't, because that's what this is about, right? It's about what works and what doesn't. Where can you save your time? If, for instance, you can't save your time, as I will show, doing logic apps, because if actually it doesn't really know how to write logic apps, then you're not going to spend a lot of time crafting a prompt to get the perfect logic app. You're also probably not going to spend a lot of time crafting a prompt to get a perfect function, because again, this is not going to write you your perfect function. This is going to write you a function that's based on its knowledge. So you're going to have to check it in. So if we go into here, just insert. Oh, that's the wrong insert. Oh, yeah, so that's interesting, isn't it? So you'll notice that the file at the top says .cs, but it's not written in C#. Every single time I've run that command, it's written in C#. So the moral of that story is, it doesn't always do what you want it to do. So let me just do that again. Just chuck that in there. Write an Azure function in C#. You live and learn, right? Okay, so I think this is probably going to do it right this time. Let's just wait and see if it comes. So it's doing an execution path this time. I've never seen that before either. Oh, right, so it's now writing some code, and that looks much more C-sharpy, right? So that's good. I'll just let it finish doing that, and we'll just go back to the Azure portal and see if it's finished doing the run, refresh. Still deploying, but you can see it started doing stuff, right? So you can see that there's a base of the service bus is there, and the Cosmos DB is there, so that bicep template is running and it's okay. Right, so that's now generating code in the language that I wanted it to generate. And you'll see it's got a HTTP trigger. I'll change that authorization level to anonymous because I don't care about security. But you'll also see that what it's done is it's used the old Service Bus SDK. Now you can imagine there's probably a lot more code written with the old Service Bus SDK than there is with the new one. It's newer after all. So it's used the old Service Bus SDK. It's also not put the Service Bus connection into the function signature. So it hasn't added it as an actual connection. It's added it as a Service Bus client. So again, what do I keep saying? Check your code. Now I do have a couple of other prompts, but in the interest of expediency, I won't run through them. You can see rewrite this using the azure.messaging.service bus namespace, and it does a great job of that. Rewrite this setting the connection as part of that function signature, and also tell me what I need to put in the local.settings.json so as it works in my development environment. Right? So all that does work. You'll have to believe me. But again, in the interest of expediency, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, I'm going to copy all this, chicken wait, just because I know that piece of code works and I don't have to debug it when I'm trying to get things working and showing you as much as I possibly can. But what I do need to do is go back to my service bus namespace, in here, refresh. It's now succeeded, which is good. Service bus namespace. Let me just get that policy. Again, it's use anonymous and use a root policy. So it's important that you don't worry about security when you're developing. Did I really just say that? Probably. Probably. That's fine. That's fine. Right. Now, if the demo gods are kind, and I run this up, there we go. Just found that. Did I change? Oh, I had. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thankfully, it doesn't show on the screen, so you won't know what my password is. Sometimes security is important. Right. So that's running. That's good. So if we go to Postman, you see what I've done. I've set correlation ID, right? And if I click send on that, fingers crossed with a fair wind behind us, it'll run against that function. And we get it back, right? Cool. So that works. So you can see all I did was write a prompt, and I've got an Azure function that uses an HTTP trigger and sends something to service bus. I haven't had to remember any of that, which is good because, as I mentioned, I'm a program architect that reviews documents. Right, so it's important that if I do need to write code, I can. You'll remember that one of the other things I wanted to do was have API management in front of that. Because we all know we don't expose functions as they are. We all know we put things behind a security plane, in our case, API management, right? So, so I thought it'd be interesting to find out how much knowledge it has around policies. Right, because that's really what we do with API management, right? We write policies. So you saw that I was sending through a correlation ID. Of course, with all the information that we went on this morning, that was talked about this morning around business process tracking and some of the other stuff around the integration environments and that sort of stuff. Yeah, and of course, with Serverless 360, Turbo 360 as well. Some of those things aren't required, but following a theme from an earlier presenter, sometimes you just don't want to pay the money. So therefore, you have to find other ways of doing things. And writing a correlation ID as a header and then passing that all the way through your integration chain is quite an easy way of doing that, right? So again, if I just take a copy of this, then it's going to go away and go, okay, look at that. I can create that for you. Again, if we just go in and look at the code, it's pretty straightforward, right? So I've just said use the request context ID. I could have used a GUID, could have used anything. But I can equally just as well go, can you please write me a policy for generating a JOT token? Can you tell me how to do auth generally? Can you do these things, right? And it will give you a good stab or a good starter to do that sort of stuff, right? So what I'm going to just do, go back here. First off, let's go back into service bus here, just to prove that when I did that function call, it actually did send a message. So if we go to queues here, you can see the message count is 1. And if I go into my Service Bus Explorer, wow, talk amongst yourselves. Go and get a coffee. Oh, here we are, right. Receive mode. Cool. Right, so receive messages. So I'll just receive and get rid of. Here we go. Oh, hang on. And you can see on the right-hand side of that there's a custom property with a correlation over. Right, so that all works. So it all flowed all the way through. So if I just go back to here. Yeah, well, there we are. So let's grab that. So I'm just going to route stuff from APIM to my local machine here for expediency. Oops. So where are we? There, right. So my Azure function hopefully is still running, I think. Yes, it is. That's good. So if I go into API management and set this up. So what I'm going to do, I mean, I think we've got 5 minutes left, so I'll just talk through what I'm going to do rather than actually show it. But obviously what I can do is I can go in here, I can set up the API, I can set up the operation. So the API obviously is just that ngrok endpoint. The operation is that /API/send messages, and I can send a message, and you would see that message would flow through, right? So like I say, I'm between me and coffee and you and coffee, so you'll have to trust me that kind of works. But I can show you, if you'd like to know more about this, just come and grab me afterwards, right? But you can see that there, it does that, and I could write another prompt that says, if that exists, do this. If it doesn't, do something else, and it would fill all that in. And I can go as nuts as I want to do there. But the whole point is, it's trained on that data, right? So logic apps. Well, logic apps. So logic apps is very complex, right? Much more complex than just a piece of code, right? So I thought I would try and see what happens. So again, this is all about productivity. So you use your productivity where you can, or you gain productivity gains generally where you can. To create, it says, and it's going through a nice little, this is the sort of thing you will do. So this morning, Kent showed very briefly the workflow assistant, which does a way better job of this than GitHub Copilot does. So again, it's use the tools that you need to use where you can use them. And you can see it's written some pseudocode and hasn't got very far. Sometimes it also writes the JSON. And if I've got an example of the output that you get from them, sometimes when it writes JSON, it doesn't always. Again, it's a prompt. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it gives you other results because it's not guaranteed to give you the same thing every single time. It's a Copilot. It's based on a large language model, or in this case, code based on a large language model. And you can see here it's done okay. There's a Cosmos DB bit at the top. There's parsing some JSON. You can see various things here. If I was to copy that into here, and then start the workflows designer, what do we think it will do? Do we think it will work? Why do we not think it will work? Correct. And you notice it hasn't done a very good job because it's also not created the connections to JSON, right? Because it's put the connections at the bottom, but it doesn't know how to create them. So again, just use your tools where you can, right? So what we got? 3 minutes. So I'm going to wrap up in about a minute ago. Good. So API management works a treat, right? Functions works okay. Again, just make sure that it's writing the right code that you want it to write and not JavaScript because that makes my eyes hurt. Things like service bus, it created the bicep template, created that okay, that was all good. And Cosmos DB as well. I only chose those because they're relatively easy to demonstrate in a short period of time, right? But you can go as nuts as you want on this sort of stuff. And like I say, I think for me, one of the key things is that the GitHub Copilot chat, it's not just for integration, it's for your whole dev life, right? So it's not just for Christmas. So the other one I wanted to talk about was Event Grid, right? So last year, with great fanfare, the Event Grid team, George in the audience? Is he outside? I think George is outside. Announced that there was this new pull semantics inside Event Grid, so it kind of like works like a queue. We heard this morning around Event Grid and event ingestion through MQTT, right? So there's an MQTT broker that sits inside Event Grid as well now. You can probably imagine that was announced as a preview process, as a preview product last year. not been a lot of stuff that's written about it in the repos. So I thought, wonder what there is. Wonder if there is anything at all. So I thought I'd write that. Writes an MQTT client to send a message to a topic called telemetry in the MQTT endpoint in an Azure Event Grid namespace called devices. And off it goes. It writes a bunch of stuff. But you'll also see that it says that it doesn't support MQTT. Right? Please replace blah, blah, blah with your endpoint. Also, ensure that the MQTT client has a, no, there you go. Note, Azure Event Grid doesn't natively support MQTT. So whilst the product is there, it's not smart enough, or GitHub Copilot chat at the moment is not smart enough to tell you that it's there. So it's not, oh, George, there it is. It's not a problem with GitHub. It's not a problem with Event Grid. It's a problem with the tool that you're using, right? And I thought, just for the sheer fun of this, does it support pull semantics? What do we think it's going to say? There's no prize, so you won't get a prize if you don't get it right. No, it doesn't. It only supports push. Right? So again, it's one of those things. I've got 18 seconds left. It's one of those things that you need to use in the right place. Right? So I think if we all in this room, I'm conscious that Clemens is out the front here. If we all in this room go out and write a bunch of code that uses MQTT client push to Event Grid and uses the pull model to get the data off of Event Grid, then probably in a few months, when they do a refresh of the data, because it's going through all the time, churning through the repos, then it'll get a lot smarter, right? So that's your challenge, right? Let's do that, right? So I think that's probably where I'm going to stop, other than saying, again, thanks for the invite for coming here to talk once again. I've made it through without falling asleep, so that's also a bonus. Probably less of a bonus for you, but more of a bonus for me. So with that, if you want to have a chat about GitHub Copilot chat and the way it works and so on and so forth, just find me outside. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the conference.